In 1994, a new release from the Beatles generated a wave of nostalgia and a lot of enthusiasm. Live at the BBC was a collection of legendary BBC studio sessions first broadcast over the British Broadcasting Corporation between 1963 and 1965. I'd like to begin with a quote from the introduction to this compilation by the Beatles' former press officer and fifth Beatle candidate, Derek Taylor. I think his sentiment is as relevant to the times we're living in now as when he wrote these words in September 1994. Tempting to say those were the days. But of course, as we live now, these are the days. Yet truly, those were happy days, and no one who sat by those transistors or by older receivers and heard that unmistakably friendly music will ever forget how good it felt. If you weren't there, then welcome now. And if you haven't yet heard this music, please do so now and know that life is indeed still good. Despite all that's going on in the world these days, life is still good. Now let's discuss the Beatles live at the BBC right now.
The Beatles live at the BBC was issued in the UK on November 30th, 1994, and in the US on December 6th, just in time for the 94 holiday shopping season. Vinyl fans may cringe, but the main event in 1994 was undoubtedly the CD version, so I'll start there. This 2-CD release was presented in a double jewel case. The front featured an altered Deso Hoffman photograph of the Beatles in front of the BBC. The compact discs were adorned with the Apple logos, Disc 1 with the whole apple, and Disc 2 with the cross-cut apple. As you can see by the indication on the discs, these recordings were presented in their original mono format. Included with this collection was an informative 48-page booklet with an introduction by Derek Taylor, as indicated at the start of this video, a collection of fantastic rare photographs from the time period, and sleeve notes by Radio 1 producer and Beatles historian Kevin Howlett, who authored the Beatles' The BBC Archives 1962 to 1970, and most recently contributed an essay for the September 2019 anniversary edition of Abbey Road. The back cover of the booklet featured another altered Hoffman photo, while the back cover of the Fatboy jewel case included the track listing, with the error of including the word top before the song title, So How Come No One Loves Me. Between 56 songs and 13 speech tracks, there are a total of 69 tracks over the two CDs. And consider this. Following the release of Let It Be in 1970, Live at the BBC was the first Beatles album in nearly 25 years to contain previously unreleased songs. While a good number of tracks were BBC versions of familiar Beatles songs, a staggering 30 songs on Live at the BBC received their first ever official release on this album. These songs were never commercially recorded for any of the Beatles' studio albums. The majority of the previously unreleased songs were covers the Beatles knew from their early live acts. You can hear the youth and enthusiasm in these performances. There's just so much vitality. This was a band enjoying themselves. To quote Paul McCartney on the BBC recordings, "I think spirit and energy, those are the main words I'd use to describe them. We are going for it, not holding back at all, trying to put in the best performance of our lifetimes." These are rough cuts at times, but they're brilliant. It's a real treat to hear the Beatles tearing through rock and roll numbers from the likes of Buddy Holly, Chuck Berry, and Little Richard. One previously unreleased song stands out as critical to this release, as it's the only recording the Beatles made of the Lennon-McCartney original, I'll Be On My Way. This song was given to Billy J. Kramer and the Dakotas, who placed it on the B-side of their single of another Lennon-McCartney tune, Do You Want to Know a Secret? In the US, the CD release of Live at the BBC also included an advert for official Beatles merchandise. Merchandising! Who wouldn't want that sweet turtleneck with embroidered lettering? Anyway, as an aside, it was only years later, and thanks to my good time buddy, that I added the CD version of Live at the BBC to my collection. This guy, he took pity on me and passed along his copy of Live at the BBC. And I still got it. I have to thank him for being a Beatle friend. traveling down the long and winding road and back again. He's a pal and a confidant. Fun fact about the BBC recordings. Between March 1962 and June 1965, no less than 275 unique musical performances by the Beatles were broadcast by the BBC in the UK. While many, if not most of these recordings were heavily bootlegged for years, I hadn't heard any of them up until the 1994 release of Live at the BBC. At that time, the most played items in my Beatles collection consisted mainly of the US Capitol albums on cassette, along with a few compilation albums. As that medium was the main format by which I consumed the music of the Beatles in '94, I purchased the cassette version of Live at the BBC. It consisted of 2 cassettes cased and housed in a cassette-sized slipcase. The case for cassette 1 featured the cover photo of the boys outside the BBC, while the cassette 2 case had a simple track listing. The inner foldouts had the track-by-track information with the Kevin Howlett notes. Here's a look at the cassettes themselves on the Apple and Capitol labels, and in glorious Dolby Digital. While the tiny booklet included with the cassette version of Live at the BBC followed the format of the CD by taking 48 pages to cover the Taylor intro, photos, and Howlett sleeve notes, the vinyl version of Live at the BBC covers the same ground with a gatefold sleeve and a couple of inner sleeves. I do also have in my collection this 1994 promo CD album sampler, containing 9 tracks from the Live at the BBC album. It came as an interesting multi-fold-out and featured a modified excerpt from Derek Taylor's introduction, track notes, and the Apple label on the disc. In addition, there was a single of the BBC recording of Baby It's You, issued on CD and vinyl in 1995. There were 4 songs included, making this more of a maxi single or EP, I suppose. In addition to Baby It's You, 3 more BBC recordings not on Live at the BBC were included. This single remains the only official source for the July 16, 1963 recording of Devil in Her Heart, broadcast on August 20th, 1963. I have 2 copies of this single, one issued in the US in a standard jewel case, and one issued in the UK in a slim case. I think the Apple logo on the disc looks much better on the UK version. Of course, I would be remiss not to mention George Martin while discussing this release, as it was he who compiled this album and digitally remastered the audio. Martin's chosen selections were based on both the quality of the sound and the quality of the performance. Abbey Road engineers, including Alan Rouse and Peter Mew, were able to use digital software to manipulate the audio for noise reduction, repairs, and EQ. This helped to maintain a mostly consistent sound throughout the album. Not every song sounds as good as others, but overall the sound quality is surprisingly good. These were well-made recordings of what were mostly live performances by the Beatles in studio at the BBC. Interestingly enough, Giles Martin, whose work we know from the many remix projects he's done over the years, even gets an acknowledgement. So even back in his 20s, Giles was tuning his ears to the music of the Beatles. Before moving on, let's revisit the cover art for Live at the BBC for just a moment. Here is the original black and white Dezo Hoffman photograph. It's not the best quality representation, but you get the idea. And here is the cover art again. As you can see, the cover for Live at the BBC was an alteration of that original Hoffman black and white shot. It was cropped, altered, and sepia-toned to create the end presentation of the cover. That halo effect around George's head and the forced depth of field always made me feel something looked slightly amiss with the cover, but I didn't know why until much later. Just thought I'd share that. Also, the reasoning behind the decision to sepia tone escapes me. Brown scale was then implemented as a theme throughout the original release. Oh, and by the way, that alternate shot of the Beatles goofing around in front of the BBC was also a manipulation. The Beatles were further away on the sidewalk, so they were cut out and placed over the same background as a cover shot, as evident from this person to George's right. What, was she frozen? In 1995, another BBC recording, Lend Me Your Comb, was included on Anthology 1. Then in 2013, a reissue of Live at the BBC was released as a remastered version. Gone was that sepia-toned cover and sharper was the image. Technological advances really helped improve that altered image, and I think the black and white works much better. What do you think? The packaging was designed to match the style of the 2009 original studio recordings. with a trifold housing the 2 discs as well as an updated 48-page booklet. The booklet retains the Derek Taylor intro, photos restored to black and white. What was this all about? And updated sleeve notes by Kevin Howlett. There were some minor changes in the track listing and editing. While the original version cross-faded many of the song and speech tracks, the reissue version does not. 3 extra tracks are also included. 1 musical addition in the form of another version of From Us to You, and 2 additional speech tracks. What is it, George? And Ringo! Yep. Kevin Howlett sums up this release nicely. This album contains 56 BBC session songs. 30 of them were never recorded by the Beatles at EMI. Expertly compiled by George Martin, when the collection was released in 1994, it was a runaway success, selling 5 million copies within 6 weeks. The advances in audio technology since 1994 have allowed the remastering team to improve the sound of the surviving BBC recordings. This enhanced edition restores Live at the BBC to its essential place in the Beatles catalog. Along with the reissue of Live at the BBC, On Air Live at the BBC Volume 2 was also released in 2013. This was a second volume of BBC radio broadcasts. It could be purchased separately or as a double set titled Live at the BBC, The Collection, which included a slipcase housing both volumes of the BBC sessions. The packaging of both 2013 releases were designed to match. On Air uses an excellent 1963 color photograph for the cover, seemingly without any manipulation to speak of. When I first bought On Air upon release, Best Buy offered an exclusive edition which included 5 art cards featuring images from the BBC sessions. Live at the BBC Volume 2 isn't quite as exciting a release as the original, but it's still quite nice, and worth having for 37 more previously unreleased performances and 23 newly available speech tracks from the BBC. Of note are the songs I'm Talking About You, only previously available as an inferior Star Club recording, as well as Beautiful Dreamer and Happy Birthday Dear Saturday Club, which are exclusively officially available on this release. The bonus interview tracks with each of the Beatles are also nice to have. Overall, this is an excellent companion to Live at the BBC. A promo CD album sampler of On Air Live at the BBC Volume 2 was also put out at the time of release.
2 quick acknowledgements of milestones reached since my last video. 1, I was able to get a haircut for the first time since this pandemic started. Oh, what joy! And 2, I reached 1,000 subscribers here on YouTube. Thank you, and thank you for subscribing. If you're new here, consider subscribing now for more content like this. And remember to beat that like button if you enjoyed this video.
Thanks for watching and stay interested in the Fab Four. I'm going to stop it right now.